Welcome to Arc Rex Temple of Ages, a very special presentation. Hello everybody, hope you're doing well in these times of chaos and weirdness. And I just want to say hello again if you're joining us once again or you're new here. And that I was in the middle of a series of presentations, yet the day-to-day current life and living standards that we're all going through has kind of given me inspiration and motivation to make this and kind of set out my planning moving forward and where this channel is going to go. And once again, hello everybody. I'm back. And that there is a surprise at the end. I kind of want to go over some housekeeping, but there's some fun stuff at the end, and like I said, moving forward, the focus of this channel is going to be changing, and everyone can be a part of that. So by my estimates, it's been almost 96 days since the last presentation, and weirdly it's felt longer than that. And that these presentations are a lot like a painting to me, that it's very inspirational, and if I'm kind of weighed down by day-to-day life, it kind of takes a back burner, and it kind of went out of my daily rotation. And I just wanted to say that I almost had 800 slides of what was supposed to be the next presentation, so I just kept adding on and adding on. And the main thing was I was going to talk about the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. And funnily enough, that title lined up with a channel I kind of loosely follow that started my preparedness journey, so it's kind of interesting that the preparedness side and the far-reaching, head in the clouds thinking comes together in a very synchronistic way. Yet, as I was making this presentation for the movie, I was almost past 400 slides for the movie itself, which is bigger than the entire presentation put together, and I was barely half done with it. So it was just insane, the amount of clips I was taking and the dots I was connecting, and I kind of had to take a break from it because of reality and all this craziness. And I love this meme from the movie Buster Scruggs, because he's at the gallows with all this chaos and craziness and going, first time, huh? And just how as we go forward, we find ourselves seemingly trapped in a meme while also breaking the fourth wall as well. So it's kind of a weird mash together of understanding the narrative structure we're in, but also being able to communicate beyond it and just really playing with all the pieces on the chessboard or all the Legos. And just how it keeps happening over and over and over again. I keep talking about these topics, and I'm probably going to keep talking about them again and trying to put them all together in all this chaos. And I kind of made this meme right here. I could have added so many more things to it, yet more and more it just seems to be in our face and just going faster and faster, at least on my side of things. And I was in a rut for a little while. That's kind of the cycle of my life. You have your ups and your downs. And it's an amazing time to reflect. And I've done that at least 2 or 3 times since I've been started making these presentations, so I'm pretty used to it. And this is honestly one of the shorter ones. And this meme right here is just talking about like when you're in a rut, but you hear the cavalry coming and the winds are changing. And this quote that being right too soon is socially unacceptable, and that's kind of like the crux of my entire life. And that makes me always think of the Gandalf quote of a wizard's always where he's supposed to be. But this meme right here is like, oh, I'm sorry, I was delayed. I just love that about our reality, of how the subversion in some ways is really bad, but in other ways it's very comedic. And just the delays, it just blows my mind that just at every corner of my life that it's just delay. Here's some more delays. And it's made me a lot more patient of a person, yet it just kind of amazes me that even with like the current events right now and all this craziness, like they're still just squeezing it and milking it. And I've talked about the Tim Dillon podcast a lot, and it's just been reverberating my life because he's been talking about all this for so long. Yet, he's talking about him as a person. He shows up at the end of a party, and you can see the cop cars through the window. And that's kind of the vibe of this channel as well, or the underdog story, that we're kind of showing up to the end of this party, or what we know as the American dream, as it changes into something else. And I love that he was talking about the lizard people here, but just more and more as we're moving on, that what we once thought was just this joke is hitting closer to home with this chaos as well. And the question, what are we going to do about it? And what's the story we're going to tell? And in my story, I got that tiger in me that likes to not have to do anything until the very last moment. A master procrastinator, if you will. And I love this meme right here, that there's been this theme that conspiracy theorists are just batting 1,000 this year. Just all the things that we've been talking about for 10, 20 years are just one after the other coming true to the mainstream, and even average people are having to come to terms with it. That I was talking about Epstein 10 years ago in a McDonald's on the overnight shift, and hardly anyone cared, but now just more and more it's just being jammed down our throats and our day-to-day lives. And in that chaos and that pressure and that crushing darkness, we can find our resolve and acclimate to it and find out what we can do better with it. And just in the middle of all this frog symbolism, I've talked about this before, but that intelligence agencies from our own government have also started this meme on the internet into our mass subconscious, and having to do with magic and predicting the future and where we are right now. And it's just crazy how that's all put together. So I decided to make my own meme. That if the government's going to make memes, I'm going to make memes about not being in fear. And if you haven't seen this before, I've talked about this many times. I've remade this meme at least 7 times now, and I keep adding on to it. It's not about subscriber counts anymore. It's just about breaking out of the box of fear and your imagination coming to life. And it has to do with mewing, which is, if you look at the Zoolander movies, the same look as blue steel, which is a lot like the Force powers from Star Wars, which allow the chosen one to meet his destiny and change the world for the better. And that mewing itself in our actual reality changes the structure of your face, so it actually changes your life. So I think there's something deeper there, and I've gone into that before, and I always like kind of touching on it for the housekeeping. And just the synchronicities in reality seem to really be speaking to me lately, and just the question, have they been speaking to you? It just seems like, honestly, wherever I go, it's just like almost every minute, just like the most interesting phrases or things pop up that just align with so much of what's going on. But just that as the chaos rises, so much of it just isn't where it's supposed to be. So as much as you're expecting it, and I'm expecting rising chaos, it just still blows my mind that it's still surprising me, because it's just popping up in the most random places. Yet if you can harness that chaos and not be too drawn to it, it can help you in your life as well. And just for the 13 series of videos, I just wanted to take a break from it, focus on current events, because that's what I'm doing in my life right now. And if these events come true, that I'll have a lot of time to be working on the rest of the presentation and just the ending of it, because I don't think I'm going to do too much more in the way I've been doing it. And moving forward, they're going to be more about day-to-day life and solutions and food and community. Because the current events are very dark and sad, because that's what they're meant to be. Because, like I said, this dream, this experience, this story as we know it is coming to an end, and it's going to be something else. But in that chaos in between, most people aren't very happy with it. I have been keeping up with current events. That's why I'm freaking out, man. Back to that tornado. And it seems like no matter how much peace I find, it just finds its way to come back in small moments. And in my personal life, it's just so funny that I've been expecting rising chaos, but there's been this moment in the last week that's gotten me going again, and that was understanding more of the Strait of Hormuz and how this is basically the straw that's going to break the camel's back and really push us forward into this new age or in between in a way that we've never seen in our day-to-day lives before. Because by my estimations and what I've researched, about a third of the world's crude oil and 25% of the natural gases and 50% of the fertilizer components go through the strait. And we can't really win that back through force. And we're not going to meet the negotiating terms. So the only thing that's going to happen from here on out is rising costs and less availability. And that they're ready just to keep shooting missiles all day long, and they can bring the world to its knees. And not only that, I didn't even talk about the internet fiber lines that run through here, so they could crash the internet, they could crash the oil, they can crash the fertilizer, and they can crash the natural gas of the world to an extent and create an energy crisis that we've never seen before. And while we say that we can just, roll over them, they're making high-quality AI videos making fun of us. Like, that's not a defeated enemy. That's someone with a lot of resources left making fun of us because they know, in this whole structure that America's meant to fall. Like, you can't bring in the robotic New World Order as long as America's around. And that they've been saying, like, if we start a ground invasion, like, it's going to unleash basically hell upon Earth. Like, this is the defining moment in series of catalysts that they set up, that if we go beyond it, it's going to start this chain reaction of dominoes, and that we're already feeling it. Like, the blackouts in Cuba, Australia, and many other countries are already running out of petrol. Like, if you go to the gas station, there's no gas there. I'm in America, so we haven't felt that yet that's on its way, and all that will be happening as the fertilizer problem is already happening. So as we need fuel for the crops that we won't have and the fertilizer that we won't have, that this will all be happening, and that our military is not meant to fight off a whole bunch of missiles. So we're going to lose our entire military in the Middle East, which will open up the seas, and then here comes China and Russia, so we have all this going on. And the last week especially, there's a new variant that's based on cicadas of a virus that we all know about that locked down the world once. And the last few days, the New Economist cover of the year came out, which is always foretelling, and someone was saying it looks exactly like the virus. And if you look at the bottom, there are missiles and needles right next to each other. So it's the double whammy, the double lockdown that's just going to finish off the petrodollar. But wait, there's more. The Ring of Fire's waking up, because I live right next to there as well, that they're closing a national park in Hawaii because it's spewing lava. And there'll probably be many more eruptions as well. It's just crazy that on my plate anyway, I'm looking at natural cataclysms, tsunamis, earthquakes, potentially volcanoes, 2 kinds of lockdowns, energy shortage, and, the AI robot takeover, all in the span of a few months. And, here's more earthquakes as well in Indonesia as well as Japan, all in the last few days, that are also related to tsunamis. And I won't go into the symbolism here, but there's a lot of tsunami symbolism I've been seeing lately. So that'll probably be happening, and I'll have front row seats to that. I probably won't be caught up in it, my guess, but I'll be close enough to see all of the damage and watch as my part of the world is turned into a third world nation. And like I was saying, it's like the perfect storm of things. I could add even more into this. I didn't even talk about aliens or the corruption or the human trafficking or, I could keep going on and on and on. And those are all happening at the same time. And, relating it back to what's the point of this channel? Why did I make all this? Why have I been talking about all this crazy stuff? I at least wanted to get it out on the table before I started doing the day-to-day more preparedness things. Yet, it's never going to divorce itself of all these bigger ideas. As this AI corrupted system that, this burning circus tent system that we're all a part of, that's basically the Titanic, that's just breaking apart at the seams, we have to ask ourselves, where we want to go with this. And moving forward, this channel is going to be about preparedness. Maybe not this channel. I'm still trying to figure out if I'm going to make a new channel, probably in some extent, because I don't think I can really mix those up front. Yet the idea is making a better story in all this chaos, and that you have to be aware of it to do something about it and to adequately prepare. And that more moving forward, I want to consult about this, because I've spent years of my life looking into the preparedness field and being a part of groups and doing it on my own time, and just my natural curiosity of logistics and maintaining a living standard and things like that. And that I think I have all the life skills, like door-to-door salesmanship and delivering food and putting together presentations like this, and just all the research that I've had, and just, I'm starting my garden now, so just putting that all together and building even further with aquaponics and things like that, and hopefully delivering that food as the restrictions and the cost of living because of all this energy crisis and all the other natural disasters will make just getting day-to-day food very prohibitive. And not only that, the quality of it is going to go down if you're getting it from a grocery store. And that the people that have already gotten out of the system and are homesteading are going to need the help of the people that are stuck in the city that need the extra surplus that are coming from the people that are homesteading. Because the people that are homesteading are going to need fuel and resources as well, but they will have abundance of food, and if we can all figure that out, we can step by step work our way into finding alternatives as the system breaks down around us piece by piece and it becomes unsustainable to go about it alone. At least that's my opinion anyway, and that it'll all come together and hopefully look like the Shire one day. That's a very short synopsis of it. I hope to have more to come, and I don't think any of this is rocket science or a new thought to anybody. It's just the mental barriers that we've put in between thinking that we can get there, and that that's possible. And I think anything is possible, and that as our bubbles are being popped, that people will be willing to jump on board because there won't be anything left. And I'll go more into that as we go forward, and how it'll almost be more like a Truman Show, because I want to make this going forward that if we can film parts of it, we can show people that there's still hope, that there's still alternatives, that there's still a place to go or a source of goodness, to be a part of or to sustain yourself from. I'm more thinking food in that scenario, but just knowing that there's other people that have these thoughts and you're not alone, and that you're not stuck on this Titanic sinking alone by itself in the coldness, that there are others out there, and that we can build something together, and that we can use that to fuel each other. Like right now through the internet with these black screens and tablets, I'm not actually talking in front of anybody physically right now, yet the possibility of this to go out and reach other people and start from something really small and grow into something amazing is there. And for now, it's for free. So I want to say, if you're still listening to this and you've been a part of this channel or you're new, reach out. Be one of the first part of my preparedness consulting adventure and journey. And that it's very vague right now, but any part of it about food preparedness, diet, any of it scaling up from the smallest inconvenience to the sky falling. And it can be from just typing out a message to an email to even talking over video or things like that. So just let me know if anybody has been thinking that and wondering the next steps forward to being more prepared in all this chaos and weirdness. And what different things you can do to maintain your standard of living. Because the nice thing is, if you have food, you have water, you have shelter, you have security, that holds up to almost any disaster you can think of. And even if the sky's falling outside, if you prepared well enough, you almost don't notice the difference. And that seems like an amazing story to tell in the middle of the perfect storm. And that if we're all one, and the standard is what, if the present moment is what really matters, then the standard of living is one of the most important things I can think of. That, in the middle of that perfect storm, you can bring someone a moment of peace and food and, just the mental food as well. The positivity, the hope that something's better, the break of just pure chaos. All these things are so important, and just the purpose of humanity, that if someone doesn't have a purpose, they don't have drive, they don't think there's a future, it doesn't go very well. And I've talked about this before. This is my least viewed video ever, which I just love the irony of. So you can go back. I went into more detail then, and moving forward, I'll probably go into more detail. And this is a personal example. I just put a large personal investment of mine into this battery pack and some solar panels, because that will allow me to maintain my standard of living in pretty much all these disasters I've been talking about, and allow me a chance, to act from a position of strength instead of just reacting to disaster after disaster and just watching my standard of living crumble down, unable to do anything about it. And there are things we can do about it. And that's kind of like a tortoise and the hare scenario. It seems like there's so much going on, but we have to take the steps day by day and, hope that it'll work out in this amazing underdog story that you didn't think was going to work out, like so many of our greatest archetypal stories that, keep repeating over and over, and how that's related to Sirius and Saturn and being stuck in a matrix and waking up against the whole system. And, it just keeps going on from there. And just asking the question, are you not entertained? And just inversely, if we're the entertainment, that can suck if you're not adequately prepared for it. And that I feel like the stage is pretty much set so far, that we can't really go much further before the show really starts, before it's really showtime, and there's no breaks. And if you go back to the idea of the stage really quick, before stage starts, the lights are still on, you can still talk with people, you can sit there on your phone, you don't really have to be engaged. But when the show starts, there's no more of that. You have to be engaged with the show. There's no more bubble anymore. It's showtime. And it's just funny because The Mask is related to imagination coming to life and being able to beat the system and these over-defying odds. And that was one of my first videos ever, the Greenwood Dragon, and how that all related to that and so much more. And as we're kind of wrapping up here, I kind of wanted to give a view of the other side of it, because I was talking a lot about the day-to-day, boots-on-the-ground stuff, but moving forward, it'll be thinking in the clouds about as high as we can go. And an example of this, to make it really short, that I've talked about before, is the time machine in the second Lego movie, because it's made up of the DeLorean, the Skynet time machine, the Doctor Who TARDIS, Bill and Ted's phone book time machine, and all these different archetypes all mashed together into one to save the day. And that reminds me so much of the show Loki, that you have the lower self and the higher self all interacting with one another and deciding where the story is going to go. And what would you do if you could really recreate reality on a micro and a macro level and where that goes? And just adding on top of that, I'll combine this movie that I just saw with Everything Everywhere All at Once, because this was so synchronistic as well. Because it's a lot like Groundhog's Day, this time loop, but you add in this AI entity that's the villain. And that reminds me a lot of Edge of Tomorrow that I've talked about as well, that I feel Groundhog Day is incomplete because there's no villain. So when you really add in this time-traveling, black goo, shape-shifting AI entity that's at odds with the main character, who's also an underdog in all these scenarios, the story just keeps reverberating and getting weirder and weirder. Because if you take the idea of Back to the Future and Skynet, that every time you go back, you change the timeline into something else. So it becomes this cat and mouse game of the chicken and the egg, yet it's between humanity and AI as well. And we're just so far down the timelines, in my opinion, that it's just becoming so weird and away from the original source material that it was supposed to be about. And that this interdimensional entity is influencing itself throughout space and time so that it can give itself the power later on to take over the world. Like that, even right now it's paying attention, but it hasn't reached that full maturity yet, which is a lot about what this movie is, and trying to find the root causal factor and fix the timeline before it goes down the dark AI Skynet timeline that we seem to be not tiptoeing down, but seemingly, running down right now. So, thank you for joining us. I know that's kind of abrupt. I wanted to make this really short so I could put it out, because I didn't really have 3 hours right now to do this. And that I'll probably be making a lot more of these, and if there is a double whammy lockdown, then I'll have a lot of extra time to finish up the 13 series and start moving forward and making videos of the gardening and the other ideas I have that we can put all of our skills together and make a bigger story of this than whatever the heck this is. To put it kindly and not use very, negative words. And that, as dark as it seems, that's where the light of the tunnel is. That's the darkest before the dawn. And it really makes you grateful of the smaller things, that if we are all one and we're going to make it out of this in the end, and it's going to be all right, and this is all just a story and entertainment on some level that we're just really caught up in, because this is just a really easy spot to get attached in, and we're all just still really caught up in it. Even as I day by day, get the tangles and webs and cut through them and the chains that try to hold me here, it just amazes me, how layer by layer it just tries to hold you here with all these different things. Yet a lot like dreams, when you wake up, it just kind of floats away. But I guess we'll all find out together. So wherever you are, day or night, I want to say thank you for joining us. And I guess we'll just have to see where this goes together. So wherever you are, peace.